Investing overseas and then having your money stuck there, not being able to get it out, is a concern that some folks have when they're first looking into banking or buying a piece of real estate or in some way moving their money abroad. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the most common reasons why I see that happen and what you can do to avoid it. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson. Here at Nomad Capitalist, we help successful entrepreneurs and investors legally go where they're treated best, lower taxes overseas, new opportunities and diversification through things like second passports, new boom markets to invest in, and more. You can learn about what we do at nomadcapitalist.com. And one of the things that I hear come up from time to time is I'll hear a story of how someone moved some money to another country overseas and they had trouble getting their money back out. I don't hear that many stories, to be honest, and I know a lot of people who are making investments overseas. I've personally either banked or purchased property or invested in some way in, probably close to 20 countries at this point in time. And so let me walk you through this. I think the most common thing that gets people stuck, in my own experience, is they put their money in a bank, generally, in a country where it is on a watch list or on the radar somehow. So one example that came up a couple years ago, I was discussing with some folks, was in Belize. I don't recall if one of the banks in Belize potentially was a little loose with their FATCA requirements in terms of complying with the U.S. government in disclosing information. But the U.S. government came down and started ruffling some feathers. And the banks had to freeze some people's money, and you couldn't get access to it for a while. I've seen this happen, not just in Belize, it happens a lot of places. It happens sometimes when you don't follow the rules of the bank, or they think you're up to no good. They'll freeze your account, they'll investigate, eventually you get your money back. And so, for folks who are used to banking with, ANZ or, Chase Bank in their local community, this can seem weird, like, why is my money locked down? Now, it should be weird, and if you plan properly and you follow some protocol, you can avoid it. But if you're going to one of these old school tax havens that's on their radars that people were doing dodgy stuff, or the U.S. government just wants to screw with them, or whatever the case may be, you may have a situation where this happens, and your money will be locked down for a while. And I think in some cases, if I recall correctly, there was actually a situation where some of the banks were like, we can't give you your U.S. dollars back. We're just going to convert it to Belizean dollars at whatever the spot rate is. Here's your Belizean dollars. Here's a check. And then it's like, good luck, cashing a check from a Belize bank in Belizean dollars. Where do you take that? And so those people could have avoided that by staying out of these old school offshore tax havens. I've been talking for years, Belize, Seychelles, the Marshall Islands. These are places that people go to because there's absolutely no requirements. What do you think happens as a result of that, right? And so I'm not trying to impugn any of the banks in Belize. I know some of the guys down there. They're nice guys. But unfortunately, the country has a bit of reputation. And, they got messed with. And so that was one situation where you eventually got your money out, but it was harder and there were some roadblocks along the way. And so I think that from my experience, that's the most common issue. What I see is, obviously there are countries around the world where there are capital controls. It is hard to get your money out. I see a number of issues. One thing we've been studying recently is the stands. I think Central Asia is going to be a very interesting market to watch in the next decade. It's going to be interesting to see what reforms they're making. Uzbekistan has started to slowly, ever so slowly, make some reforms, for example, in the banking space. And I think it's going to be a tourism hotspot also. I think it's like the last undiscovered place. But some of those markets have issues with capital controls. It's hard to get your money out. Certainly hard to get your money out in a major international currency like euros, dollars, etc. You're stuck with the Uzbek som or whatever it is. But if you go through and you look at which markets don't have those issues, if you look at markets that have free flow of capital that allow you to do your business in foreign currencies, I can't say I've ever had someone have a problem with that, right? So if you invest in the countries that we talk about, you're generally not going to have an issue. Now, in some markets in Latin America, getting your money in can be a big issue, and if they're doing a lot of checks, getting it out may be a little bit slower too, or maybe harder to get a bank account, or the bank may do a lot of scrutiny of larger transactions. Let's say you sell a house, for example. I can imagine like a Colombia or something, or a Mexico, you'd have to do more paperwork to get your money out. But generally speaking, I haven't seen that many issues. What I have seen in some cases is they recently opened a bank account in Malaysia. And they said, hey, we can open up US dollars, Australian dollars, whatever, but understand that, our policy is you can just convert that into ringgit, the Malaysian currency. So you can wire US dollars in, but we don't wire it back out, okay? And so that was stated up front. If you want to work with that, cool. You can park your money there until the end of time, and you can convert it to ringgit for daily expenses, to buy a property, do whatever you want. But that's their rule. And so this is one of those issues where, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? I think that sometimes people just, jump into something that they see advertised, and they get some email newsletter that's offering a property in some country. And, if you don't pay attention, if you don't ask these questions up front, what I call the unknown unknowns, right? We made a video talking about, things to check on before you buy a property in a country. This is one of those things, how do I get my money out? And just as they say in real estate, money is made when you buy. What you also want to make sure when you buy is, how am I going to sell? How am I going to exit? And, for me, in some cases, I'm not particularly concerned getting my money out of the country. I'm willing to make long-term bets in those countries. Maybe I live there. Maybe even if I were to sell a property, I would buy another property, or I just plan on investing there for a long time. But if your exit strategy includes, being able to get your money out, what currency is that going to be? What are the terms and conditions? Most countries, and really any country worth their salt, is going to let you do that. Obviously, you cannot go invest in just any country in the world and have this not be an issue. But that's why it's so important to find the right countries. And so part of the reason why we talk about, the same 10 countries a lot is because there are not that many countries that check all of the boxes that an investor is looking for. This is one of those boxes. And so if you follow those parameters, number one, have a strategy when you're going in. Not only for this, but also ask yourself, am I getting a residence permit? Am I getting a citizenship in this country? How am I going to access my property? How am I going to go to the bank? If I wanted to get my money out, right? Ask yourself all these questions. But if you have that proper planning, this is not the kind of thing that I would worry about that much. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.